There is a certain kind of revenge movie that never really goes out of style. It just waits for the right face, the right city, and the right amount of fire to come roaring back. That is exactly the energy Motor City is giving off. And after this new trailer, I think Alan Ritchson may have another action winner on his hands. This does not look like a sleek spy thriller or a polished studio action piece trying to feel safe for everybody. It looks meaner than that, dirtier than that, more personal, and that is exactly why it works. The first thing that hits me about Motor City is how committed it seems to its own mood. This is not a revenge story dressed up in modern franchise language. It is a revenge story that wants to smell like gasoline, sweat, cigarettes, and old Detroit asphalt. Set in the 1970s and built around a man who gets out of prison with nothing left in him except rage and unfinished business. The movie feels like it understands one very important thing right away. Revenge only lands when the world around it feels broken enough to deserve it. Alan Ritchson plays John Miller, a man who has spent years behind bars after being set up for a crime he did not commit. That alone is already sturdy material for an action thriller, but the trailer sells it with the right kind of physical misery. He does not walk out of prison looking like a superhero who had a rough weekend. He looks worn down, buried, and rebuilt by anger. The long hair, the beard, the silence, the heaviness in the way he moves, everything about him says this is a man who has been sitting with the same pain for years and has no interest in letting it go. That is what makes the revenge angle feel stronger than usual. Too many modern vengeance thrillers want the audience to clap before they feel anything. Motor City looks like it understands that the real hook is not just watching a man destroy people. It is watching a man step back into a world that stole his life from him and decide, piece by piece, what he is willing to burn to get even. The trailer gives me shotguns, fire, beatings, and a nasty-looking car fight, but underneath all of that I can still feel the personal grudge driving every frame. Shailene Woodley also seems important here in a way that goes beyond standard motivation material. The trailer frames her as a major emotional force in John's life, not just a flashback device pasted in to explain why he is angry. That matters. A revenge movie gets a lot stronger when the pain at its center feels intimate instead of mechanical. If Woodley's role really anchors the emotional damage that pushed John into prison and now pulls him back into violence, then the film has a much better chance of feeling like a real story instead of just a highlight reel of punishment. Then there is Ben Foster, who honestly feels born to exist inside a movie like this. The trailer strongly suggests his character played a major role in John's downfall, and Foster has the exact kind of unstable, dangerous energy that makes him perfect for that. He can make menace feel sweaty and immediate. He does not play villains like theatrical masterminds. He plays them like men whose worst qualities are already leaking out of their skin. If Motor City is as interested in ugly, close-range revenge as it looks, Foster is exactly the kind of actor you want standing on the other side of Alan Ritchson. What also stands out is the way Motor City seems to embrace old-school action storytelling without feeling trapped by it. The comparisons to 1970s revenge cinema are obvious, and the trailer does not run from that at all. It leans into it, but it does not look like a museum recreation. It looks modern in the right ways, clean enough to move fast, brutal enough to hit hard, stylish enough to feel cinematic, but still rooted in the kind of hard, stripped-down storytelling where every gunshot and every chase has real anger behind it. That is the sweet spot for this kind of movie. Potsy Ponsaroli also makes this more interesting than it might seem on the surface. He already showed with Old Henry that he understands how to build tension around men carrying buried violence. Motor City obviously looks louder and more combustible than that film, but the trailer suggests he still knows how to let pressure build instead of dumping everything on the screen at once. That matters. A revenge thriller should not just explode. It should simmer until the blast feels earned, and honestly, the positive Venice reaction tells me pretty much what I need to know. This does not sound like a prestige masterpiece, and it does not need to be. It sounds like a critic-friendly genre picture that knows exactly what it is trying to do. The praise seems focused on the movie's rough style, its throwback energy, and its commitment to a hard-edged revenge setup. Motor City does not need to be elevated. It needs to be effective. Based on the trailer, effective is exactly what it looks like. It also helps that Alan Ritchson is in a moment right now. Reacher turned him into a serious action presence, and since then he has been building a convincing screen identity around physically imposing men who look like they can break a room in half but still carry emotional bruising underneath the surface. What makes Motor City feel different from some of his other recent projects is that it looks more stripped down and more character-driven. Reacher is controlled power. This looks like power that has been buried for too long and finally gets pointed in one direction. I think that is why the trailer works so well. It understands the fantasy at the center of this kind of movie, but it does not feel cartoonish. The fantasy is not watch the unstoppable badass destroy everybody. The fantasy is watch the man you buried come back harder than the lie that put him away. That is much better. It is sharper. It is meaner. And it gives the action a moral charge that simple body count filmmaking usually lacks. The biggest question, of course, is whether the full film can sustain the intensity the trailer is selling. Revenge movies are easy to pitch and harder to land. You need escalation, but you also need rhythm. You need brutality, but you also need purpose. And you need the final payoff to feel like more than just noise. But if Ponzaroli keeps the story focused and Ritchson delivers the kind of bruised, locked-in performance the trailer promises, Motor City has a real shot at becoming one of the more satisfying action thrillers of the year. As a minimum, it already looks like the kind of movie that understands its own appeal. It knows the car fights matter. It knows the shotguns matter. It knows the fire matters. But more importantly, it knows none of those things matter unless the man at the center of them feels like someone who truly has nothing left except the need to settle the score. That is the version of this movie I want. Not polished revenge. Not ironic revenge. Not empty revenge. I want revenge that feels hot, bitter, and just a little self-destructive. Motor City hits theaters on July 24, 2026, and after this trailer, I am fully on board. This looks like a hard, nasty, emotionally bruised action thriller with the right lead, the right era, and the right amount of fury. Until the next one, keep your engine running. Because this summer Alan Ritchson is not chasing justice. He is chasing payback.